The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. Jace Carter stood under a gray sky, staring at the fresh grave. The name on the stone was simple: Halora Carter, beloved grandmother, explorer of stars. No one else had come to the funeral. His grandma had. No friends left, no family but him. Well, people in town thought she was strange. Some said she talked to stars. Some said she once vanished for 5 years and returned without a single wrinkle, wearing an old spacesuit no one had ever seen before. Jace never believed the stories. To him, she was just Grandma Halora, the woman who raised him, taught him to ride a bike, and made strange soup from glowing plants she said were not from this earth. Now she was gone, and Jace felt more alone than ever. After the funeral, a lawyer gave Jace a folder. Halora left a private will, the man said. Only for you. Inside the folder was a letter and a single metal keycard. The letter was handwritten in Grandma Halora's careful script. Jace, if you're reading this, then I'm truly gone. But you're not alone. Not anymore. Take the keycard to storage locker 113 at the Westridge docks. There, you'll find my last gift to you. It's time you learned who you really are and where we truly come from. They'll be watching now. Be careful. The stars remember. Me and they will remember you. Love. Grandma. Jace read the letter twice. Then a third time. The handwriting was real. The smell of ink and lavender, just like her. What did she mean by where we truly come from, and who would be watching? He looked at the strange keycard. It was metal, but smooth and cold like ice. A faint blue light pulsed in its center. A normal grandmother might leave jewelry or a photo. Album his left him a mystery. 2 hours later, Jace stood at the edge of the Westridge docks. The storage yard was full of rusted containers, forgotten, boats, and old spaceport gear. Most of it was decades out of use. Locker 113 was at the back of the yard, overgrown with vines. Dust covered the electronic pad. Jack slid the keycard through. The light blinked green with a loud click. The door unlocked. Inside was complete darkness. Jace hesitated, then stepped in. The lights came on slowly, and there, in the center of the large container, stood a spaceship. It was small, no larger than a shuttle, but it wasn't like any ship Jace had ever seen in the news or museum vids. Its hull shimmered with deep blue metal. It's smooth like glass, but stronger than steel. Alien. Symbols glowed softly along the edges. The cockpit glass was dark, but something inside lit up as he approached. The ship recognized him. With a gentle hum, the ramp opened. Jace swallowed hard. His heart pounded. Was this real? Is this some kind of dream? We stepped into the ship. The interior was warm, comfortable. The walls pulsed softly, like the ship was alive. Then a voice spoke, a voice he knew. "Hello, Jace?" He froze. It was her voice. Grandma Halora, a soft blue hologram, appeared in front of the cockpit. Her face, young and calm, looked at him with pride. "If you're hearing this, it means I'm gone," she said. "But my mission isn't finished. And now, ... it's yours." Jace sat down slowly in the pilot seat. The controls shifted to fit his hands. The lights turned brighter. This ship is called the Emberlight. She's one of the last of her kind. A gift from Halora. Our true home. Yes, Jace. You're not just from Earth. Our blood comes from another world, one lost long ago. Now, you must find it again. The hologram faded. The screen on the dashboard lit up. Star map appeared, marked with hundreds of systems. One of them blinked in red. Halora. The system didn't exist on any current maps. It was in a dead zone, unexplored. Unmarked, far beyond human colonies. Jace stared at it. Halora. ... He didn't know what it meant. He didn't know if this was a dream, or some test, or a trick. But then the ship's engines began to hum. The dashboard blinked. Autopilot engaged. Jace panicked. Wait, what? The ship's ramp closed. The roof of the container split open. The sky above was dark, filled with rain clouds and thunder. But the ship didn't wait. With a loud roar, it lifted off into the storm. The stars greeted him, for the first time in his life. Jace Carter was in space. His fingers trembled on the controls. Earth shrank behind him. The ship moved faster than anything he'd imagined, cutting through light. It's heading into the unknown. Then the screens shifted. Incoming message, unknown override. The ship slowed. A warning flashed on the display. Unregistered ship detected. Identify yourself. Two ships appeared on the radar, dark, fast, and heavily armed. They weren't Earth models. They had no lights, no markings. Just shadow and steel. Jace's heartbeat raced. What do I do? What do I do? The ship's voice spoke again, but this time it wasn't his grandma. It was colder. Chirper. Defense systems armed. Engaging evasive protocol, the ship spun sharply. Jace was thrown back into his seat. Lasers lit the space around him. The two unknown ships opened fire. Explosions sparked near the rear engine. Taking damage, the ship warned, then a sudden pulse shot from the center console. Everything around Jace glowed, activating slip jump. There was no time to think. The stars twisted, then dashed darkness. The ship exited lightspeed in deep space. No planets, no moons, just silence. Jace breathed hard, sweat running down his face. He looked back at Earth, but it was gone. The nearest star looked faint and unfamiliar. He was completely alone, until the screen blinked again, new. Data UN Cicada. The map zoomed closer. Halora location confirmed. Coordinates locked hand underneath it. A line of text. They will follow you now. Don't trust anyone, Halora. Must not fall again. Jace leaned back in the chair. Everything he knew, his life, his world. His past had just changed. His grandmother had left him a spaceship, but more than that, she had left him a secret war, and it had just begun. Jace stared at the blinking screen. The coordinates for Halora pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Somewhere out there in the dead parts of space was a planet no one remembered, one that had been erased from every star map. But right now, Jace, he had a bigger problem. He was flying a ship that shouldn't exist. He had no license, no training, no idea how he just escaped a deadly ambush from two unknown ships. And this vessel, the Emberlight, was far beyond anything Earth's fleets ever built. He needed answers. The ship's AI, which had sounded like his grandmother before, now seemed silent. The last thing it said was chilling. They will follow you now. Jace tightened the seatbelt across his chest and took a shaky breath. Okay, one thing at a time. Now, first I need to figure out what you are. He tapped on the glowing console. Most of it was touch-based, written in a language he didn't understand. But the ship seemed to respond to his thoughts and voice. Ship, can you scan yourself or something? What are you? A moment passed. Then the holographic interface activated. Blue lines ran across a 3D model of the Emberlight class. Xenotech human-locked prototype origin. Halora Command Vault Level 6 owner. Jace Carter. Deceased next in line. Jace Carter genetic match confirmed ship status. Active partially. Encrypted 37% memory corruption. Jace blinked. Xenotech? Human locked? That didn't make sense. Human locked meant only someone with human DNA could use it. But Xenotech meant alien. Both couldn't be true at the same time. Unless this ship was made by aliens for humans. That thought made his stomach twist. He reached for the controls and switched to galactic comms. He needed help, but not the kind that asked too many questions. Maybe someone at the old Westridge orbital station would talk. It was far from Earth's main traffic lanes and filled with smugglers, traders, and retired engineers. 2 hours later, the Emberlight docked in a quiet bay of Westridge Station. The air smelled like old metal, oil, and burnt coffee. Lights flickered across the rusty walls. Jace kept his head down, wore a plain jacket, and tucked the ship's keycard into his pocket. No one could know what he flew in with. He found a dusty tech bar, called the terminal node, and asked to speak to someone who knew ship's rare ships. The bartender pointed him to a man sitting in the back booth, drinking alone. Ask Lennox, she said. He used to fix old warships, knows every model in the sector. Jace approached carefully. Hey, you Lennox. The man looked up.
Nice.
Eyes were tired but sharp. "Who's asking? I have a ship. And I don't think it's supposed to exist." That got Lennox's attention. They moved to a private scan booth. Jace handed over a non-sensitive part of the ship's log, just a fragment of the design data. Nothing about Halora. Nothing about his grandma. Lennox stared at the screen for 5 full minutes. Then he spoke. This isn't from Earth, or Mars, or any of the major colonies. Hell, this isn't even from the old Alliance war days. Where'd you get this? It was left to me, Jace said, in a will. Lennox snorted. By who? A ghost. Jace stayed quiet. Lennox sat back, squinting. You know what this is? This matches something I saw once decades ago, in the archives of a war no one talks about. A human colony that vanished without a trace. Name started with an H. He paused. Halora. Jace froze. You've heard of it? He asked, trying to sound calm. Lennox nodded slowly. I was young. Working comes on an outer system base. One day, an encrypted signal came through. No origin, just coordinates. Psst. And a word, Halora. When we traced the signal, there was nothing. Black space. Like the star system didn't exist anymore. He leaned forward. I've only seen one other ship with tech like this. Back when I was stationed at Jupiter orbit, a classified wreck they dragged in. The higher-ups ordered it destroyed. They were afraid of it. Jace's voice was quiet. Why? Lennox's face darkened. Because it wasn't just tech. It had memory. It could think. It could feel. And it wasn't made by Earth hands. They called it a ghost ship. Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed through the station. Alert. Unregistered ship detected on Deck 4 security response inbound. Jace's stomach dropped. Deck 4. That was where he parked the Emberlight. Lennox turned sharply. You didn't register your ship? Jace jumped up. I didn't think I had to. Lennox grabbed him. Kid, listen to me. Someone else is already looking for it. You need to go. Now. But who? Lennox looked at the booth screen. It was flickering. Static ran across the display. Then, for a split second, Jace saw it a dark face. Smooth, no mouth. No eyes, just a black, liquid surface. It vanished. What was that? Lennox's voice was barely a whisper. Not human. And not friendly. Jace didn't wait. He sprinted through the station. Security bots rolled past him, heading toward his ship. People screamed as doors locked down. Red lights flashed overhead. Jack reached the bay just as one of the shadow ships from earlier uncloaked in the distance. It had followed him. Somehow it had found him again. The Emberlight opened. Its ramp automatically. Jace leapt inside. Welcome back, Jace, the ship said. Get us out of here. He shouted. Engines roared. The ship blasted out of the docking bay, spinning hard to dodge the incoming fire. Laser blasts shot past the hull. The shadow ship gave chase. But this time, the Emberlight didn't just run. It fought back. A burst of bright light exploded from the rear thrusters. Not a missile, something older. A pulse wave made of sound and color. The enemy ship veered off. Slip jump, Jace gasped. Not yet, the ship replied. You have to go deeper. Jace frowned. Deeper where? A new map appeared. Halora, access granted jump. Path unlocked. A swirling tunnel of stars opened ahead. Brace yourself, the ship warned. Then everything twisted as the stars blurred around him. Jace sat in silence. The station was behind him. The hunters were getting closer. And now, the real journey had begun. His grandma hadn't just left him a ship, she had left him a secret, a weapon, and a target painted on his back. The tunnel through space was endless. Colors Jace couldn't name flowed across the windows of the Emberlight as the ship made its slip jump. He felt the pull of gravity shift. His stomach twisted. Time bent. For a moment, he couldn't even remember his own name. Then the ship snapped back into real space with a heavy jolt. Silence, just stars, thousands of them twinkling. In the black, but something was wrong. There was no warmth from any sun, no planets nearby, no stations, no signal, only darkness, and one tiny red dot blinking on the navigation screen. The system had no name, no coordinates listed in any galactic database. It didn't even show up on commercial star maps. Jace leaned forward. There it was. A dark world, floating alone near a dying star. Cold, silent, forgotten. Halora. The planet looked dead.
Ow.
No lights, no satellites, no signs of cities or ships. Yet, somehow it still pulled at him as the Emberlight descended. The clouds surrounding the planet swallowed the ship in thick gray mist. The atmosphere sensors flickered. Radiation levels were low. Gravity matched Earth. But the temperature? Surface temp. -80 degrees Celsius. The ship said the planet was frozen, lifeless, and yet alive with mystery. They landed in the middle of a huge stone crater. Old ruins stretched out in every direction. Sharp towers broken in half. Metallic structures overgrown with black frost. Strange alien trees stood still in the windless air, frozen like statues. Jace stepped out of the ship wearing a thermal suit the ship was printed for him. His boots crunched against the ice as he walked forward. The place felt ancient, not just old, but abandoned on purpose. Then the ship's voice came into his helmet. A signal is coming from below the surface. From where? A vault. Buried deep. Your grandmother's access code is recognized. Jace followed the blinking light on his visor moving through the ruins. He passed broken signs, written in English, but also in a strange, curved script that glowed faintly even after all these years. After 10 minutes of walking, he reached a metal hatch covered in ice. He touched it. The ice cracked. Then the door opened. The hallway below was dimly lit, but still powered. The air smelled like rust and ozone. Walls hummed faintly as if something still lived in them. Old banners lined the corridor. One showed a white flame against a black star. Jace followed the hall. Deeper underground, then he found a round chamber with a glowing control panel in the center. As soon as he stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind him. Halora protocol online, a voice said. Genetic match confirmed. Ilara bloodline. The control panel lit up. A blue sphere hovered above it. Spinning memories began to pour into Jace's mind. Not his memories, images, sounds, explosions, screams, Through the streets, as black ships rained fire from the sky, he saw his grandmother. Younger, leading soldiers in white armor, he heard her voice. Hold the line. The silence must not take the core. Then something changed. The vision shifted too. The stars. One by one, star systems were blinking out. Not destroyed, just erased from all records. Wiped clean, as if they had never existed. Halora was the last. Ilara had activated something called the Vela planet-wide memory shield that made Halora disappear from every map. Every scanner, every system. Even the AI in orbit couldn't remember. Only the Emberlight had the key. The vision ended. Jace dropped to his knees, gasping. What was that? He whispered. The voice answered softly. Halora was the last true human world outside the Earth Alliance. It was hidden, protected. Then it was found and nearly destroyed. Your grandmother erased it to protect the survivors. Jace stood up, shaking. She didn't just leave me a ship, he said. She left me. ... a forgotten world. The panel lit up again. A new signal blinked to life. Coordinates, another hidden system, another memory. Jace returned to the Emberlight, trying to make sense of what he'd seen. But before he could sit down in the pilot seat, the ship's lights dimmed. Warning. The ship said, incoming transmission detected. Origin, Deep Halora Core. A new message came through, but it wasn't human. A voice spoke in pure, static. Then words began to form. Cold, broken, full of echoes. We see you now. We remember you. We brought the light back. We hunger. Jace's skin went cold. The screen flashed a new image. A deep chasm beneath Halora's surface. And something moving inside it, something that should not be alive, ship, he whispered. What is that? Emberlight's voice dropped to a whisper. That is what we tried to bury. The silence never truly left. Then the signal. Cut. The ship's systems shook. Power flickered. "They found us," the ship said. "We must leave now." Jace didn't ask questions. He jumped into the pilot's seat and hit full lift. As the ship rose into the sky, the planet beneath them began to tremble. Huge cracks opened in the ice from deep inside. A sound escaped low, awful, like a dying star screaming. Jace didn't look back. The Emberlight soared through the clouds, back into space. But the damage was done. Halora was awake, and the silence was listening again. The Emberlight flew fast, but not fast enough to leave fear behind. Jace sat in the pilot's seat, gripping the controls even though the ship flew itself. His mind raced. The image of Halora cracking open, that horrible sound from beneath the surface, it wouldn't leave his thoughts. He had felt something down there. Not just danger. Something older than fear itself. Something alive. The silence. His grandmother had fought them. She'd buried them. She had erased an entire world to keep them from spreading. And now, because Jace returned to Halora, they were waking up. The ship's voice broke the silence. "We are being scanned." "By what?" Jace asked. "Unknown. Source. Deep frequency. Not human. Pattern matches last recorded signal from the entity classified as the silence." The ship suddenly dropped out of Lidged P. The stars stopped moving. Everything went still. Jace looked around, confused. "Why did we stop?" "We're not in normal space," the ship answered outside. There were no stars, no planets, only thick darkness. Then something passed in front of the cockpit. Long, smooth, silent. It wasn't a ship. It had no engines. No light, just a black shape drifting through the void. It looked like liquid metal frozen in time. Then it turned. Jace felt it not with his eyes, but deep in his chest. It was watching him ship move. Now, but the ship didn't respond. "Systems frozen," it said. "They've breached the outer AI firewall. They're inside." Jace stood up and ran to the back of the cockpit, opening a hidden panel that flashed red. Systems inside looked like wires, but they moved like veins. The Emberlight wasn't just technology. It was something alive, and it was sick. "Tell me what to do," he whispered. No answer. Then a voice filled the ship. But it wasn't Grandma Lair. It wasn't even human. "Return to sleep. You are not ready to carry the fire." Jace turned. A figure stood in the center of the cockpit. Not fully there, like a shadow inside smoke. Its body was human-shaped, but wrong. No eyes, no mouth, no face. Just smooth black skin that shifted. Like ink in water, he tried to speak, but no words came. "You opened the gate. The stars no longer forget. We remember the fire. We remember the pain. And we are hungry." Suddenly, the Emberlight screamed. Not with alarms, but with a real sound. A deep, loud echo that came from the walls themselves. The figure flickered then, vanished. The lights came back. The stars returned. Jace gasped for breath. He had been holding it the whole time. The ship's voice returned. "They tried to overwrite me," it said weakly. "They are stronger now. I need help." "We need help." Jace looked at the screen. New coordinates had appeared. A place called Aiden's Reach. "What's there? A survivor?" The Emberlight jumped again. This time Jace kept one hand on the emergency brake, his other hand near the manual override. Didn't trust auto systems anymore. And not after what just happened. After several hours, they exited into a quiet region of space. An asteroid belt floated nearby. And within, it hidden among the rocks, was a small station. Old, damaged, barely powered. Its signal was weak, but active. "Approaching Aiden's Reach," the ship said. "Docking, permission granted." "By who?" "Captain Lyra Halden, last of Halora's outer defenders." "Cryostasis, 79 years. Chase's mouth went dry. "She's been frozen since the war." "Correct. Her pod activated when we reached Halora. She is awake." Jace stepped into the cold airlock of Aiden's reach heart-pounding. Inside the station, it was dim and quiet. Rust covered the walls. Machines groaned like tired lungs. The only light came from blinking floor strips that led him toward the cryochamber. There, behind a thick glass door, stood a woman in a faded white uniform. She was tall, thin, with short, black hair and eyes like steel. She aimed a plasma pistol at Jace the moment the door opened. Named Jace Carter. Lyra's blood. Illyra's blood. He nodded. She didn't lower the gun. He woke the silence. I didn't mean to. I was just following the map. There is no just with them, she snapped. You returned. That's all they needed. They never died. They only sleep. And now the fire's lit again. She finally lowered the gun. We need to move. Where? To the last flame. If any part of the old fleet survived, it's there. That's our only chance. Back on the Emberlight, Lyra moved like someone who belonged in the ship. She touched the walls with care. She spoke to the AI like an old friend. She's different, she said softly. The Emberlight grew. While we slept, Jace looked at her. You were part of Halora's military? I was one of the last captains to stand at the gate, she said. When Halora erased the planet, she told me to sleep. To wait for someone who could carry the fire again? Jace shook his head. Why me? I'm nobody. Lyra looked at him. You're not nobody? You're Illyra's grandson. That makes you everything. The ship shuddered. Warning. New scans from Halora. Planet activity increasing. The silencer moving. Jace closed his eyes. He wasn't ready for this. But he had no choice. His grandmother had left him a ship, secret map, and now an ancient enemy. The silence had woken, and the stars would never forget again. The Emberlight moved through deep space with quiet purpose. Beside Jace, Captain Lyra stood with arms crossed, staring at the projected star map. She didn't blink much. She barely breathed. She was remembering things Jace couldn't imagine. Tell me the truth, he said finally. What were the silence? Lyra looked at him, eyes hard. Not what? Who? She tapped the controls, and the star map changed, showing once bright human colonies going dark, one after another. They called themselves the Stillborn Choir, she said. Beings made of sound and memory. They feed on thought, light, sound, and anything that moves or feels. They arrived when we expanded too far, reached too deep. Jace stared at the empty systems. All those people just erased? Not dead, Lyra said. Consumed. The Emberlight pulsed. Another memory unlocked. Hologram. Shimmered in the cockpit. It was Elar again but younger, armored in white and silver, standing on a burning platform. Ships exploded around her. Behind her, strange shapes loomed black and endless. They are not gods, Halora said. Are echoes that refuse to die. They turn memory into poison. But we fight. We always fight. She raised a weapon, unlike anything Jace had seen before. It shined like fire trapped in glass. If you're hearing this, it means they're back. So listen well. You run, you die. Hide, you burn, you fight. Maybe you live. The image faded. Jace stood silent. She knew they'd return. She always knew, Lyra said. That's why she built the Emberlight. It's not just a ship. It's a memory forge, part tech, part biology. It remembers her. It'll remember you too, if you survive long enough. The ship's voice chimed in. Coordinates locked. The last flame. Caution. Silence activity increasing in 5 sectors. Time is limited. Jace sat down in the pilot's seat. His grandmother hadn't left him stories. She'd left him weapons. She'd fought creatures that devoured minds and turned light into death, and somehow she'd lived long enough to hide the one thing that could stop them. Now, it was his turn to carry that fight. Would you like me to continue with part 6? The map leads to the last flame next. 2 halves, you said, :6, ChatGPT said part 6. The map leads to the last flame. The Emberlight moved through the void like a ghost. Outside, the stars dimmed, the light growing fainter with each jump. Captain Lyra sat beside Jace in silence. Neither of them had spoken since Hallora's last message. Jace stared at the glowing map in front of them. One red dot blinked far away. From all known systems, it pulsed gently as if waiting for him. The last flame, he whispered. Lyra nodded. That was our fallback, our last signal fire. If everything failed, it was the place we'd gather what remained of Halora's defense. But no one knew if it would survive. Why so far? Because the silence never go near a dying star. Jace looked up. Why not? Lyra paused. They're afraid of something in the light. As the Emberlight jumped, the stars around them stretched into long beams. Jace leaned back, trying to stay calm. His heart beat fast every time the ship blinked through space. The jumps felt heavier now, slower, as if something was pulling at them. The ship's voice crackled. Entering orbital perimeter of the last flame, they came out of slip space into darkness. A pale white dwarf star hung like a cold ember, its light barely reaching the nearby moons. Round it floated massive shapes, hundreds of ships. Some were shattered. Others drifted with power, still faintly glowing in their cores. They looked like ruins, but also like a fleet frozen in time, waiting. Jace's mouth dropped open. They're still here, Lyra's voice broke. We built this fleet in the last months before Halora fell. We never got to launch them. The Emberlight sent out a signal. A reply came instantly. Cases granted. Elara bloodline detected. Fleet intelligence online. Then, one by one, lights blinked on across the dead ships. Engines hummed. Weapons charged. 1,000 ships began to wake. The Emberlight docked with the lead vessel, the Vowkeeper, a long, spear-shaped warship with a command deck still intact. Jace and Lyra entered a cold chamber where a black sphere hovered above a metal pedestal. Oh, it spoke with a voice both male and female. Welcome, heir of Alara. We have waited. Jace stepped forward. The fleet. Yeah. I am what remains of its mind. I carry the last orders of your grandmother. Side panel opened. Inside it was a curved blade, lightweight and glowing softly. Ancient human characters. Ran along its edge. Jace picked it up. It felt warm, familiar, almost like it had been made just for him. She said you would need this, the voice said, to remind the stars that humanity still burns. Alarms suddenly blared. Lyra rushed. To the console, incoming ships. Jace turned. Silence. No, worse. The screen showed several Earth Alliance ships jumping into the system, but these were not friendly. Their weapons were hot. Their signals were blank. Jace's hands clenched. They followed me. They're not here to help, Lyra said. They're here to take the Emberlight and erase everything your grandmother protected. Jace looked at the blade in his hand, then at the fleet outside. Then we don't run. Lyra smiled, just a little. That's exactly what Alara would have said. The dark silence of space was broken by light. Dozens of Earth Alliance warships dropped out of slip space above the pale star. They moved like a swarm, tight, cold, and efficient. Their weapons lit up instantly. No messages, no warnings. Jace stood on the bridge of the Vowkeeper, staring at the tactical display. Red dots filled the screen. He had seen military fleets before, but never this many. Not all at once. It's not for him. Beside him, Captain Lyra's eyes burned with fury. There. Not here to talk. They're here to erase the evidence, to bury what Alara saved. Jace didn't argue. He could feel it too. The pressure in the air. It's a feeling that someone far above Earth had decided the truth about Halora must never rise again. Not the silence. Not Elar. Not him. The ship's AI flickered. The Emberlights. Presence has activated full fleet command systems. Awaiting instructions. Commander Jace Carter. Jace turned slowly. Commander, you carry Alara's blood. You hold her key. You hold her flame. The fleet is yours now. For a long moment, Jace couldn't speak. Then he looked at the screen. At the swarm of red dot, and he realized something his grandmother had always known. The galaxy was full of liars, of monsters, of shadows. But fire remembers, and it spreads. The command table lit up with options. Defense walls, ready archive blades. Armed flame gates, active ember wings, Delaware Ba. Lyra looked over in shock. These aren't standard weapons. No, Jace said quietly. These are Haloras. In a flash, hundreds of ships powered to full strength. Fire danced along their wings. Ancient energy cores flared as forgotten tech came back to life. The Earth fleet opened fire, first arcs of plasma streaking toward the Vowkeeper and the Emberlight, but the fleet responded as one. A wave of ships moved to intercept. The Ember-winged sleek fighter-class ships with flame engines started forward. Twisting through space like lightning, each one lit the void with trails of golden fire. Jace watched it happen. Heart pounding. He wasn't just watching a battle. He was leading a forgotten army. The Earth Alliance ships realized too late. This was no simple rebel hideout. This was a fortress built to fight gods. One cruiser launched a torpedo at the Emberlight. Jace gave the command, redirect power to reflective shields. A shimmering dome lit up around the ship. The torpedo hit. It bounced. It spun through space and exploded against one of the attacking frigates. The enemy formation faltered. Jace's fleet moved in. Inside the cockpit of the Vowkeeper, Lyra turned to Jace. They'll call this treason. I don't care, he said. They buried Halora. He tried to bury the truth. He paused. But my grandmother left me more than a ship. He turned to the display. She left me an army. Suddenly, a dark ripple tore across the stars. Jace staggered as the ship shook violently. Outside the viewports, the stars flickered, dimmed. Then the AI whispered, new signal entering the system. Not human. Lyra stared at the screen. Her face went pale. The silence. One of their ships slid into view. No lights, no weapons. Just a shifting shadow that moved like a storm, and behind it another, and another 10, 20, hundreds. The silence had followed Jace's trail, through the stars, through the fire. To the last flame, the war had arrived. Jace stood taller. The blade Halora left him hung at his side. The Emberlight was at his back. The flame fleet was awake. And now the enemy had come to extinguish the last light, Lyra, he said. Tell the fleet, he paused. Light them up. The stars trembled. Jace stood at the center of the Vowkeeper's command deck, staring out the main viewport. Behind him, thousands of ships. His ships floated in tight formation. In front of him, a dark tide spread across the void like spilled ink. The silence had arrived. No engines, no lights, no heat. They weren't a fleet. They were a plague made of memory and shadow. And now they had come to destroy what remained of Halora. For good, the Emberlight glowed quietly in the rear formation, its flame drive pulsing like a heartbeat. Jace knew the ship was more than a relic. It was the spark Halora left behind. And now that spark had lit a fire. The war was about to begin again. Captain Lyra stepped forward. We have one advantage. The silence doesn't expect resistance. Not from this. Nodded. Let's show them we remember. The fleet as came online across the flame ships, and holograms of long silent captains filled the decks. Echoes of the past, still loyal to Halara's last command. Protect the flame. Jace raised the blade Halora had left him. Its edge shimmered. Reacting to the energy of the Emberlight behind him, he gave the command, open fire. The void exploded in color. Plasma bolts, light spears, flame arcs Holoron tech that hadn't been seen in 80 years. Flashed through the cold black dot. The first wave of silent ships didn't fire back. They simply absorbed the attack's bending. Them twisting the energy, learning, but Haloron weapons weren't normal. Each strike left a trace of heat, of memory, of fire things the silence couldn't consume. And then they screamed. It wasn't sound. It was thought forced into every mind aboard the fleet. You were forgotten. Stay forgotten. Jace flinched. His head pounded. The ship AI cried out, but he shouted over it. We're still here, the Emberlights. Flames surged. A wave of fire spread across the battle line as the Emberwings charged forward, crashing into the front ranks of the enemy. Then silence adapted. Their ships began to move, changing shape mid-flight, forming claws, blades, tendrils. They launched toward the flame fleet. One Haloran destroyer was sliced in half. Another exploded from within as black mist poured into its systems. Jace clenched his jaw. Lyra status. 30% of our ships have engaged. We're holding for now, but they're overwhelming our flank. Jace turned to the command core. Activate the Emberlight central memory beacon. The AI hesitated. That will expose your position. You'll become their focus. Exactly. Bring them to me. The Emberlight flared like a small sun. Pulse spread across the battlefield, a shockwave of light and memory. For a second, every ship, every star, every silence entity in the region saw Leia, her face, her fire, her fire. The black tide rushed toward, but he was ready, the Vowkeeper, and its escort ships moved in tight formation, forming a protective ring around the Emberlight. They fired as one, every blast powered by the memory drive, every explosion embedding human thought and emotion. The silence, recoiled they felt, and that was something they couldn't stand. The tide cracked, several silent ships burned truly. Burned, for the first time in centuries. Lyra turned to Jace. We're winning. They're falling back. But Jace wasn't celebrating. He saw it on the scope, a massive shape entering the system, larger than any ship, blacker than night, wrapped in coils of gravity and shadow. Not a ship, not a fleet, God. The voice of silence. Jack felt it before it arrived, his skin turning cold, his vision darkening at the edges. The ship began to shake. Even the Emberlight dimmed. The AI whispered, he's here. The one Halora feared, the one she never could kill. The silence god spoke without sound. Every mind aboard the flame fleet heard it. We will not forget you again. We will end you. Ships began to collapse, imploding from within. Some AI systems cracked, others wept. Jace stood frozen until he heard another voice. Her voice, Halara's final message. It echoed from the Emberlight's core. Jace, if he comes, you must use the flame protocol. You must burn brighter than memory. You must become the fire. Jace stepped to the control panel. Lyra grabbed his arm. You activate that, you might not survive. Don't. He placed the blade into the command slot. The Emberlight surged with power. A final command appeared on the screen. Engage flame protocol? Jace took one last breath and pressed yes. Light brighter than any star erupted from the Emberlight. The god screamed. The fleet followed. Thousands of ships lit up in a final unstoppable charge. The war for Halora had begun again, but this time the stars would remember and humanity would burn. But in defiance,